bring his expertise to us on a regular basis here about what's going on in the economy and how that affects the real estate market, whether it's here or other real estate markets, and of course, nationally overall. Okay, so without further ado.
As soon as you're talking about my bio, I'm like, okay, please stop.
Much. I'm going all day. Absolutely. Good to see you too.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And for those watching from wherever, I do love technology. I'm not a fan of technology if you could put the people and be present first. But if you can't be here, it's awesome that we have that capacity so that we can still communicate and add value. I really appreciate you guys coming. I know it's really busy. I know it's summertime. You have kids out of school. The market's still pretty strong. You have a lot going on. Listings are taking a little bit longer, so you have more to do. You can't put a sign in the yard like pandemic style. If you haven't been to a state of the market before, like Megan was saying, I want to kind of give you like a little lay of the land. First and foremost, guys, I'm not that smart. I just pay attention, and I've been around for a while. So like, kind of like the old man in the room. And so I just want to share with you what I see and what's going on, so you can make your own decisions. Like, I'll give you my opinion. If you've been in state markets in the past, good news and bad news, it's not predictions as much as it's just like stating what's going to happen, right? Like, I was talking to a friend who's here who's like got in really good shape, and he's like, well, stop drinking and you work out and you actually like try, you see results, right? Like, and if you don't, and so when you see some of the things that are happening in the world and the economy and the markets, you kind of see where we're going. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. So that's my number one priority, guys. Kind of just lay the land of where we are today, where we came from, and where we're going, both on a global scale for the market, the US economy, and then the housing market in our backyard. So it's cool to talk in Charlotte. I know we have people around the country watching. So, and for anyone who's not in Charlotte, the markets are all very similar, guys. Some may start a week or a month or 6 months in advance. But if you're in California, New York, if you're in Texas, Florida, or North Carolina, in 2009, the whole economy crashed and the real estate market went down and mortgage went down. And last year when rates went up, it did not matter where you lived, everyone stopped. No one did refinances, no one bought. So this is not a conversation just for Charlotte. Now, don't get me wrong, San Francisco and the Bay Area and New York City will lead the uptick in the downturn, which comes right after Toronto, Montreal, and Canada. And so Charlotte kind of like lags, just like it always has. When the economy was going through the roof in 2002, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Charlotte didn't see it right away. But then when the economy crashed in 2009, we felt like a 20% dip in some markets, like in the Bay Area, New York, Chicago, Vegas, about 40, 45%. So the bad news is Charlotte is never going to compete with a New York City or a Los Angeles, San Francisco, or a London anytime soon. The good news is we can still have our small town with a very diverse workforce. All right, so we'll get started. First and foremost, guys, what are we all talking about now? Rates, right? We're talking about how like rates are too high, rates are too high. The good news is sticker shock is kind of worn off. What that means is, like, even though rates are around 7%, the sticker shock of that high rate has worn off for many. You know, when that happened last year, guys, people were so used to the 2.5, 2.75, 3% rate. Don't get wrong. Like, I've got a 2.8% rate. I refinanced at the end of December 2021. And so it's hard for me to want to move. But at the end of the day, if you need to move, you take the higher rate. But it's just less people that need to move. So the emotional piece is not happening. The wanting isn't happening, right? People want to move, but they're just not doing it. So the sticker shock is worn off a little bit, but there's still so many people, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There's so many people that are like, well, I would buy if rates came down, but I don't want to lose my 2.5% rate, right? And many of us are dealing with that. And so if they don't want to lose a 2.5% rate, they're not going to sell. If they don't sell, they're not going to buy, so they stay put. I keep that in mind as we talk this morning. Because everyone's saying, well, once rates drop, everyone's just going to buy. Because no one has to sell a home. Everyone's just going to buy. If tomorrow rates go from 7% to 2%, everyone's just going to buy a home, just so you know, guys. They don't have to sell. They don't have to get the equity out. Like, their home, they'll just kind of keep it, and everyone's just going to like hoard houses. Like, it's not what's going to happen. So just keep in mind there's more to the story than just the hyperbola of, well, once rates drop, the market will just lower back. The other conjecture that I hear often, and this is for my friends in California, New York, the good news for them is that people are moving there. When people say like everyone's moving to the Carolinas and everyone's leaving California, New York, well, that can't be true, or no one is moving here because they have to buy there first, right? if you live in California, if you live in Los Angeles, if you live in New York City, and you're moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, or you move into Tampa, Florida, you move into Raleigh or Nashville or Atlanta, if you're moving to Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Seattle, any of these places that everyone's going to, Austin, Texas, and you're coming from California, New York, someone has to buy your house there so you can come here. Does that make sense? So people are still moving there. Those are going to be very strong housing markets for forever. The prices may be really high, so people get more cost sensitive. At the end of the day, people are always going to be moving there, because if they don't move there, they're not moving here. Does that make sense? Someone has to move there for them to move here. Again, we're going to talk a lot about common sense this morning, because like the media loves to just like tell you whatever it takes for you to click on it and share it on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, but it doesn't mean it's actually accurate. We want to be the expert. You can't be the friend if you're not the expert. And so the biggest thing I have going for me is I've always tried to be present. I've never had this kind of opportunity as a kid, and so no one ever listened to me. I was always told no. So I've done a lot of my own homework, and I started realizing, oh wow, like nothing happens in a vacuum. This has to go to that. It's like dominoes. So what's going on in the world? What's going on in the housing market? Well, first and foremost, everyone knows that when supply goes up, demand goes down, right? I mean, you guys hear like supply and demand, but we're like, I was an economist, as Megan said, but what I didn't hear in Econ 101, I learned in like Econ 201 or 301, was that supply and demand are like a seesaw. You hear like supply and demand, but you don't hear that when supply goes down, it pushes up demand. And when supply goes up, it pushes demand down. Does that make sense? So there's like two things there. One, yes, supply and demand are correlated and they relate to one another. But secondly, and more importantly, when supply goes up, it pushes down demand because people want what they can't have. So during the pandemic, supply was at an all-time low, so it propped up demand. Obviously people wanted the home because it's the only place that they could work and vacation and school. They couldn't travel, they couldn't go anywhere. But also the lack of supply, people wanted what they couldn't have. And so that just, the supply was at an all-time low, demand was at an all-time high. So where are we today? Again, we got to talk about where we came from to know where we are, see where we're going. Supply is picking up, guys. I hear all the time where people say it's not. And then I follow up with the question, like, oh, okay, so you're listening to selling opening weekend with 7 offers without even putting professional photography? Oh, no, it took a month. Oh, no, it took 2 months. Wait, so it means supply is picking up. Well, that just means dates and markets picking up. Okay, so no one else ever listed. Oh yeah, well, 2 other homes hit the market, that makes sense. That's just conversation, so I have to dig a little deeper. And when I dig, I find out that year to date, or year over year, June, because we're in July now, June, the most recent month of 2024 versus 2023, supply is up 23%. A lot of this is going to be national, and then I'll reel into Charlotte and the Carolinas. So we're up 23% year over year. Now, that's only found when you dig. Or because again, you're like, oh no, I sold my house, and like I don't see a lot of signs in the NAR. Guys, we have to be the expert. The NAR settlement, it's going to be a little bit of a nuisance. It's going to weed some people out. But to be honest, like I've waited for years for there to be higher standards in the real estate market, in the mortgage industry. Like we are not used car salespeople. I have friends who use car salespeople, but the majority, like we're not commerce people. People are commerce people. At the end of the day, like this is life or death. And so the higher standards is a blessing. Like this is going to be okay, right? Like it's going to weed some people out who just wanted like some mailbox money and a couple of vacations and nice suits or dresses because they watch HGTV. But this is a career. Like you have people's lives in your hands. You are saving their marriage. They're bringing babies into this world. A lot of people are leaving this earth in hospice, and they need the dignity of the home to remember it's made. And during the pandemic, it was the only safe place people had. So it is that important. And so you need to know that supply is going up. Okay, like, and you know what? Like, will that scare some buyers? I'm sure. But like, people just need to have information, and then from there they can decide what to do with it. Does that make sense? Okay, so supply goes up. What happens next? Prices come down. Prices are still up year over year in Charlotte and in the country. I've always watched the S&P Case-Shiller Index. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I'll beat myself up for a moment. So when I started in 2005, 19 years ago, I was 25 years old, and I hit the ground running. And I really cared. I hope I was being the friend even back then. But after a while, one of my friends was like, hey, this sounds weird because you're telling people every month that Charlotte is going up, and the S&P Case-Shiller Index is saying that Charlotte's going up, which it was, which means that housing prices were going up. That's what it's an index that shows, what home prices are doing in one area versus another. But then my friend asked me, but you're asking us to buy a home, but you're saying the market's going up. And so you got to buy a home now because they're going up. And I hate sales. I hate sales, right? And so I was like, oh wow, that's weird. I'm telling people that prices are going up, so they should buy a home. I'm like, well, in Charlotte, I really do believe this, and I still do. There's more people moving here than not, and so prices long term should keep going up. Not in a vacuum, not like 1 month the next or year to year, but over 5 years, Charlotte for the next 20 years should be going up. So that's a good answer. But what happens when the index goes down? I'm like, well, then you might want to look at what's going to happen in the future, because you might want to sell before it goes down more. Do you know that people don't sell houses any more than they sell stocks until the media says that the market's crashing? Like right now, the stock market, we'll get to that in a minute, is in like an all-time high. It's actually crept down this week. Last week was all-time high, we'll get to that. But people won't sell. They're not going to sell because the market's hot. The housing market's hot, the stock market is hot. And so people don't do that until Warren Buffett says, he buys when there's blood in the streets. And he also said that Americans love to buy high and sell low. It's what we do. Like we see on the media that they're like, oh, the housing market's hot. Okay, cool, I should buy a house. That's actually when you should sell your house. Stock market's through the roof, all-time high. That's amazing. I told you this smart investment. I should buy more Tesla. No, now's when you sell your Tesla. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So what happens when supply goes up and pushes down prices? Supply is up 23% June over June. Okay, prices are up 3.2% in June. Okay, now that might sound, or excuse me, year over year for June to June. That's still up. Okay, but supply is going up. So supply is going up and price is still going up. But it's only 3.2%. So what does that mean? Well, over the last 5 years, prices went up 9% a year. In 10 cities, in the 10 largest cities, it went up about 8% a year. And in the next 10 cities, which includes Charlotte, we're about the 15th largest city, by the way, guys. The first 10 is New York City and Chicago and San Francisco and Houston. The next 10 is Charlotte and Raleigh and Nashville and Tampa. And so the smaller cities, those smaller MSAs have gone up a little bit more because they had a lower price point and the cost of living is more attractive. So they have more people moving here. But again, a lot of people are still moving to those bigger cities because if not, then no one can move to the smaller cities. That makes sense. And what's attractive about Charlotte is we have a very diverse workforce where there's no one workforce that has more than 12% of the overall economy. And so it's not just banking, it's not just service, it's not just manufacturing or energy and service. And so we have a very diverse workforce, which is really helpful. Okay, so prices went up 3.2% year over year. But over the last year, it's up 7%. So we're less than half of what last year. So it's slowing down. And over the last 5 years, it went up 9% a year. So we're just gonna keep rewinding as I go forward. So supply is up 23%. Year over year. Prices are only up 3.2. By the way, if you guys heard of inflation, we'll talk about inflation in a minute. Inflation last year is over 3.2%. A couple of years ago, it was 9%. So if inflation year over year is 5% and prices on houses are up 3.2%, are we really rocking and rolling? And supply is going up. Now, supply is up 23%. And stick with me, guys. Like I'm gonna throw a lot at you. I don't have teleprompters or anything. This is just a passion of mine, so I'm not making this up. These are all real data. Supply is up 23% year over year, but we're still 33% below 2019 pre-pandemic. Okay, so we are still below where supply was in 2019. Now, for anyone in DHR, we represent a lot of builders, and you see we're doing a lot of housing starts, and people know that North Carolina and South Carolina and Florida and Texas and Washington, there's states that are doing tons of housing starts. There's more homes being built than resale homes being sold. And so supply is lower today than in 2019 for available inventory. What does that mean? Like, where are all those houses? Well, during the pandemic, no one was moving and rates were low. Now, no one's moving because rates are high. But people have to move. We have loved ones that get older, they need to downsize. We have loved ones that are younger, they need to have kids and they need to upsize. And so supply has to pick up. Does that make sense? I mean, it has to pick up. And so you're seeing supply start picking up. We're still way below where we should be. And we haven't even talked about the overall economy. And the Fed needs to eventually lower the rate. But the Fed lowering the short-term rate has some relationship to the mortgage, but you understand, like they're not directly tied, right? Like I love seeing on Facebook, and I said, love them being facetious. I'm not a big fan of social media and everyone faking to make it. When the Fed lowers the rate, they've kept it constant because, inflation is coming down. That's come down more. When they lower the rate, that does not actually immediately do anything to the real estate market. When they lower the rate, that just means that when you buy a car, it's less expensive. And when you buy furniture, when you do a short-term loan on maybe student loans, maybe it might be lower. It's on your credit cards. It's not on the mortgage. Now, there's a lot of correlation where long-term, a few months, a couple years later, mortgage may follow, but they're not directly related. Another stat, I want to go too far off. When you're flying in the sky, sometimes they have to, bless you, reroute you just a little bit. But even if they don't, you see the route. If you're going from Charlotte to Seattle, Washington, it's not a direct shot. Before you even get up in the sky, like you're moving around. So we're going to fly around a little bit. But I want to give you guys perspective that 67% of the time that we have a recession, the housing market actually goes up. And the reason for that is that real estate seems to be the safest place to put your money long term. Let me throw some other interesting stats of where we are today. Do you know that since the Depression of 2009, real estate has actually outpaced, or excuse me, stocks have actually outpaced real estate? That's a crazy stat, right, Jennifer? Well, the last 15 years, if you hold the dollar constant and look at $100 in 2009, looking at real estate appreciation versus stocks. And one of the great things about real estate is leverage. And if you have $100 or $1,000 or $1 million, you can buy a much bigger value house than you can stock. And you can buy $100 worth of stock, but you can buy $1,000 worth of real estate. Does it make sense? But that $100 went to roughly $1,900 in real estate and roughly $2,300 in stocks. And so they're pretty similar right now, but real estate started higher, so it didn't go up as much. So the stock market in the last 15 years has actually grown more than the real estate market in the last 15 years. So if you always paid cash for your real estate, and you always paid cash for your stocks, no funny business, no shorting and options, you buy a stock. I'm just picking a stock, Bank of America, and you buy a house in a normal market, not somewhere an hour and a half away, not in a foreclosure area, not in an area that's like extra popular or is not having a lot of money pumped in the economy. Over the last 15 years since the Depression, everyone says that real estate's gone through the roof. And it has, but the stock market has gone up incrementally more. It's important for you guys to know. It's important for you to know all these stats because before we land the plane a little bit later, I want to show you what they all mean. But also when you're talking to your friends, your family, and your clients, then you can do more than just pull up like some random media article. Because where'd that article come from, guys? The article came from someone, a reporter who talked to someone who probably has an agenda. I have no agenda. To be honest, like this conversation may have some people be like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be buying a home right now, right? Like that might be what it has people doing. Or they might be saying I shouldn't sell a house. My only agenda is to inform you guys so you can be the experts so that you can help your own families first and foremost, and then your neighbors, friends, and clients. That makes sense? So housing prices are up 3.2% year over year, which they should be up more like 8 to 9% if you look at the last 5 years. But the pandemic made them too high. Supply is up 23%, like I said, but again, we're still down 33% from pre-pandemic. And so we have a long ways to go to catch up. So where are we today? By the way, gold just went down this past week after hitting an all-time high last week. It just under 2,500 an ounce. And silver is actually starting to outpace gold. In general, we talked about all these things and they all kind of happened. I mean, good or bad or indifferent, it was kind of obvious that people were going to start moving their money out of real estate, move into stocks, move into gold and silver. Gold's up 24% year to date, but 21% over last year. So it's outpacing so in 6 months, it's up 24%. For the last 12 months, it's up 21%. And so it's going up too fast, right? And part of that's inflation, part of that's we don't know where to put our money. Silver is up 28%. In the last year, it's up 21%. So silver is even outpacing more. And part of that is because gold's getting too expensive. But the other part of that is because stocks are too expensive. Now, there are funds and there are investors that have unlimited money that are just going to keep pumping the stock market up. I'm going to get political for a second. I'm not being partisan. I'm going to be political. Unfortunately, guys, we're in a presidential election year. The stock market's going to look awesome all summer. Like it has to look awesome. No one's going to talk about the economy all summer. They're going to wait Like that's not gonna be popular this summer. The stock market's not going to be popular this summer. When we talked before the year started, the stock market would be up about 8%. The Dow, as of yesterday, was up 9%. Now it's gonna wane off, because forget about the election, it always goes down in October. Brokers let it stay high through September so they can get their bonuses. You know, when I was a kid, guys, I thought that everyone was just amazing. I thought everyone older than me, and I still really respect the elderly. I respect people of all walks of life that are good people. But when I was a kid, I just thought, man, I loved my teachers and they were great. I thought every teacher, every doctor, every lawyer, every politician, every person I saw in person on TV, they're just really smart and they really care. Like no one has an agenda, nothing you read on the news or online has like a slant. They're not trying to sell subscriptions, they're not trying to get followers. I mean, when I met my wife in 2009, she was like, yeah, so my friends can't find you anywhere. They can read about like your real estate career, but like, why are you not on social media? Are you trying to hide something? I'm like, or I believe in like relationships, I never had them. Like, I really don't like, I love technology allows us to meet with friends today that can't be here. But I just love this, like this interaction. But I also need, and I'm not cynical, but I also have to recognize that like not everyone is going to speak the truth. And that's of all walks of life. You got to keep your group tight, people that you know, trust, love, and respect you. And so when you're reading online, just be very careful, guys. Are we really being the expert? We just read an article and it's like, this market's hot, blah, 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 and like rates are going to fall. Like, last year, I was like, oh, yeah, rates are going to fall. This is a short-term blip. Of course not a short-term blip. Guys, we may not see a 2% rate again in our lifetime. That was not real. You know, like 2% mortgage rates were not real. The pandemic hopefully never happens again, but that was not real. Like supply chains just stopping, people being told they couldn't leave their house. Like, again, I'm not going to get partisan, but there was politics through all of this. And it's not because always an agenda, it's because we're also human. And so we make poor decisions in a vacuum with fear without all the facts. I just want to give you guys all the facts that I can give you. Again, people are moving to California, New York. Let's stop telling the world like no one's moving there. And I'm not just saying that I don't know if anyone's actually listening from New York, California. It's just it's just common sense of human nature that if you want someone to buy your home in Valentine and everyone's coming from New York and your buyers are coming from New York, they're contingent on selling their home in New York. And so no one's going to buy their home in Hoboken, New Jersey or on Long Island if no one's moving there. But someone has to buy that home there for them to move here. Does that make sense? Again, this doesn't, when I talk to reporters, they're like, wow, that makes sense. I never heard that before. I had a reporter at Axios last year, and I love Axios. It's not a bad thing. I appreciate their honesty. He asked me a question about a year. They're like, David, I'm really confused. How come no one talks like this? I'm like, well, do you want me to show you my texts from my real estate friends? They're like, Dave, you're killing us. Like, just keep saying that, like, it's going to get better. Like, it's always going to get better. It's not always going to get better. Now, long term, it will be better. But what does that mean? Like, if the market's better for everyone, like, you're selling a home and then moving out of Charlotte, do you want, like, do you want prices to fall? No, you want them to be high until you sell. Then you want them to fall because you're out, right? Like, and if you're a buyer, you want prices to be really low. So it's not always better for everyone. You know what I mean? It's no different than when you're looking at like what God has planned for you in your life in 3 years, and you're like, I should do this. No, you shouldn't. That's not where He wants you to be. So He's going to send you a different way, and there might be a good opportunity for someone else. And so I just don't believe in hyperbole. I'm just talking at this high level, like this is what everyone is doing. This is what's happening for everyone. When the housing market goes down, the economy goes down. It actually doesn't happen like that. You know, we've had 2 recessions inside of the pandemic and where we are today, but now the definition is like not clear. The recession is 2 straight quarters of negative GDP. We've had that. And we've had recessions that no one talked about. And we will have another one. The good news is that we have a lot more supply to come. The bad news is we have a lot more supply to come. It's not just real estate, it's toilet paper. You know how easy it is to get toilet paper now? There's a lot more coming, guys. There's a lot more coming. Like China's gonna keep making everything. Like we have a lot more of that stuff coming. So what's going on in the stock market? Because it's called the state of the market for 2 reasons. One, it's not just for real estate. You guys have families that make decisions outside of like your real estate career and outside of your house. But 2, what happens in the economy dictates the market. And what happens in the stock market dictates the housing market. So they're all related. So just the overall market, guys, because like it's all important. So what's going on in the stock market? Last week, we hit an all-time high in everything. You know, the top 500 in the Dow hit an all-time high. You know, hit almost 42,000, which is so crazy. If you look at 2009, it was like 7,500. The S&P hit an all-time high of like 5,600. And again, it was almost as high as the Dow was in 2009. And NASDAQ hit an all-time high of like almost 19,000. I have the exact, it moves in real time. Probably real estate moves in real time too. When we look at closings for a listing, the DHR, we don't do that, right? We look at pendings and then we look at actives. Closings are not important. That's great, the appraiser may look at them, but if you're looking to buy Wells Fargo stock, what it sold for a month ago means nothing. If you're looking to buy groceries, what they sold for a year ago also means nothing. I mean, grocery bills are really high, as you guys know. And so what happened in stocks last week and that closing from 3 months ago, that's great. You can send it to the appraiser if it helps you, if the appraisal comes in low and you're a listing agent, if you're in mortgage and you want to help the cause, but it has nothing to do with buying decisions. People act on logic, excuse me, they act on emotion, they don't act on logic. The irony is during the pandemic, once they got past the fear, the irony about the house is part of that was emotional because like I want what I can't have, right? Fear of missing out. But then part of it was logic. There was a part of the housing market buying decision in the pandemic that was actually really healthy that I wish would continue. And what that is, well, I really want these schools. I really need a 4-bedroom with a primary down. I need an in-law suite. I need at least 3,000 square feet. I don't need a half acre. No one needs a half acre, guys. They need privacy, right? No one needs a fence in yard. They need the ability to put a fence. And so they knew what they had. That's the logic. The challenge is they're like, well, I really want this house. I don't want to lose this bidding war. And they just get caught up and riled up. And then they're giving 100, 200, 300,000 diligence fees. And then prices come down, which is happening now. And by the way, you're like, no, but they went up 3.2% year to date. Well, or actually June over June in the last 12 months. The challenge is that's below inflation, guys. So housing prices are actually falling. So let's dig into the stock market a little more, what that means for real estate. Because everything we're talking about, regardless if it's a stock market or precious metals, if it's like bread and butter and diapers and milk, or if it's real estate in California, New York, it all has something to do with real estate in your backyard. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have confidence, consumer confidence is starting to pick up, but it's pretty low for so many reasons. If you don't have confidence, you just don't move. And if rates are high and you don't have confidence, you don't move. And if the short-term rate on your credit, if prices are really high in inflation, and then they raise the rate on your credit card they're using to buy the groceries at Harris Teeter or Trader Joe's, what I said. And then you're thinking like, okay, I want to get a renovation on my home before I sell it, but I can't even afford the babysitter. So my marriage is so like, it just becomes a slippery slope. And so you just don't move. You know, that fight or flight when you have fear. And that's like what happened at the end of the pandemic. And then last year, that sticker shock, holy cow. So the stock market, the good news is last week was an all-time high, like I said. This week it's come down a little bit, like a couple percentage points, depending on which market we're looking at. If it's the Dow, the S&P, or the NASDAQ. The bad news is people are not selling yet. Like it came down a little bit, but not really. Like 1% is nothing when it's up, you know, between 10 and 20% year to date, right? It's not. When you see a 4, 5, 6% drop, that means people are selling. They're not selling. They're still holding and they're still buying. Most people are buying because that's what you do. Like when something, like I said earlier, when it's hot, everyone buys. People can't buy real estate right now. They want to, but they can't because like rates are so high for them and they don't have extra money. So what happens to the housing market when real estate's really hot? Well, we already talked about in the last 15 years, stocks have outpaced real estate. In the last 30 years, real estate has outpaced stocks, guys. In a lifetime, real estate grows faster than stocks. Stocks grow at about 5%, real estate grows at about 8%. Like I said, the last 5 years, it's grown about 9%. And you might be thinking, how's that possible because of the pandemic? Well, prices did drop last year. We just didn't talk about it because that wasn't the focus. We didn't talk about interest rates. But as soon as interest rates went up, what happened? The market just stopped. Last year was really bad for the housing market, guys. Like it happened so fast. I mean, in retrospect, the Fed should have raised the rate throughout the pandemic. If they realized it was gonna be more than 2 weeks to flatten the curve, they actually would have raised the rate throughout the pandemic, and it would have went 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. Just like in any relationship, in your marriage, with your kids, with your partner or spouse, with a friend, colleague, you set expectations. You go to a restaurant on Friday night for a date night, last minute, you don't have a reservation, and they say 45 minutes, and they seat you in 30, you're pleased. A table, you didn't expect to even have a table, 30 minutes is great. But if you make a reservation and they seat you right away and you're waiting 5 minutes for your water and tea and you're like, wait, just wait, or what's going on here? You're like, does anyone even work here? And that 5 minutes is as long as your lifetime, right? So unmet expectations or unset expectations like ruin everything. And so not up when they should have, supply didn't go up when it should have. And that was a combination not being prepared for the pandemic. There was a combination of like the ships that couldn't make it back to America and all that stuff. And now dealing with the repercussions. Inflation went up because of like all the free money and lack of supply, which pushed up demand and prices. It was with everything. It's high right now, guys. Stock market's really high. And that's not David up here being like using like subjective adjectives. Really high, all-time high last week. But this week's not an all-time high anymore. And I think next week, God bless you, will be another all-time high. And then it will be not an all-time high. And then it'll be an all-time high. And then it won't be an all-time high. And it's going to kind of just like bounce a little bit the rest of the summer. It's just kind of like a little pothole and then a rock. Maybe you notice it, maybe you don't. It's not going to move that much. And real estate's similar. So real estate and the stock market kind of trend together. When the stock market goes down, real estate goes down. In 2009, everything went down. Now, recessions in real estate, because recessions is the whole macroeconomy. Recessions is so much more than a particular consumer's buying or selling habits. There's so much more involved in that. But right now, stocks are too high. And I'm not saying price is too high. I want you guys to answer that. But supply is too low. And people need to sell before they can buy. If you've had any transactions recently, how often are they not doing two deals at once? They're always selling before they buy. And there's so many people on the sidelines. And so then the narrative is, well, as soon as rates go down, prices are going to go through the roof again because everyone's going to buy. Well, this is not chicken or the egg, guys. There's a process that has to happen. Supply has to go up. It's going up, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be. Prices have to come down. They're still technically up. They finally, last month, inflation and home prices are about even. But the stock market is crazy high. The stock market has outpaced real estate and is an all-time high as of last week. This week is showing a little Kingston armor. So until the stock market goes down, which it needs to do, until real estate goes down, which follows the stock market, because real estate follows the stock market, guys. Because if people have $500,000 in their retirement account to get ready to retire, and then the stock market goes down 20% and they lose 100 grand, they're not retiring. That means they're not selling their house and downsizing. And if they are starting a family and they have 50,000 retirement and that goes down 20%, they lose 10,000. That was the money they're going to borrow for their down payment. So they're also not buying their first home. You see what I'm saying? And so the crazy thing is, again, I'm going to keep going backwards to show where we are today. So you guys are all really smart. I'm just giving you all the information. Wisdom is taking all the knowledge and data that you receive in the world and then using it for good and to help people and through discernment. So if supply is not as high as it should be, right? Supply is not as high as it should be. And rates are really high. Which is a chicken, which is the egg? Now, if tomorrow, like the Fed just wanted to just take rates down to like 2.5%, which has never happened before 2020, 2021, by the way, guys. It's not like, well, when they get back down, the new back down will be a year from now. Spoiler alert, like when we get to like 5.5, 5.6. 2%? There's no chance in the next 10 years we're going to have a 2% interest rate. If we have a 2% interest rate again, guys, this is an expectation to set with your clients. If we have a 2% interest rate, anything under 3, even 3.5 and under, anywhere between 2 and 3%, if we have that again in the next 10 years, there was unfortunately another catastrophe. There was another 9/11, there was another pandemic, something really bad happened outside of anything that could be expected. I mean, a massive terrorist attack, something really bad in this country has happened, not the world, because we actually, outside of importing way too much and exporting way too little, we actually are not impacted. We're still the leader of this free world. The US still is like the #1 economy. The dollar still is fairly strong. Our buyers need to hear that. Our buyers need to hear that. Anyone who's in a serious relationship or a marriage, like you love your spouse, mutually exclusive from the quirks. That's okay. Like no one is perfect, right? That interest rate was not real. That was not. Like the fake money that so many received, the government assistance, that was all nice, but that was not real. Like that's why inflation went up afterwards. They don't make more gold, they don't make more silver, which is why that's going up now. And it's outpacing real estate. But inflation's coming down.
but stocks keep going up. See, it doesn't make sense. Like when you start looking at common sense, it doesn't make sense. And the only reason for it is they don't know where else to put their money. But they're starting to put it more and more into precious metals, and they have a lot of dry powder. A lot of people, guys, if someone's a financial, I was talking to my financial advisor friend the other day, and he's like, Dave, I've never seen so much cash on the sidelines. They're done buying stocks. They're not selling stocks. People don't want to give, everyone loves to hoard what they have. Like if anyone's ever tried to sell a house or someone, Cindy that helps us with staging, Jennifer, the listing manager. I mean, like you see it, they're like, oh, I kind of want to keep this. I can put this in the attic. I'm like, or you just give it to Goodwill or Salvation Army or find someone else. No, they just want to keep everything. It's like, well, you never know. Like when, I might need this like one day.
Possibly, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Again, guys, I'm really on course, but sometimes you have to just navigate what's going on in the world and like the storms and the winds. And so supply is not as high as it should be, you guys. We're not even pre-pandemic, and there's been a lot of housing starts. So to give you perspective, if supply doubled every month the rest of the year, we would be back on pace to 2019. If the housing inventory in the United States doubled every month the rest of the year, regardless if people bought or not, it just went on the market, regardless if it came off in 2 weeks or 2 months. If all those homes just hit the market every single month, we would be back to 2019. Hold that constant. The last 5 years, a lot of homes have been built. There's even more homes that should be going on the market. The reason why home prices are higher today than 1979 is because there's more buyers than there's homes. And so more homes should be sold now. There should be more homes on the market now than last year. Every year, supply should be higher than the prior year. Does that make sense? Like it just has to happen. Like there's more population growth. Unless you're in a country, unfortunately, that is really struggling, or a city in America where the town is shutting down, there's no involvement in development and economic prosperity there. There's population growth in America, okay? We did not always have 300 million people. And so supply should always go up. Does that make sense? Now, what you hope is that supply and demand kind of equal out. But supply is way too low. And so what happens next? Well, the stock market is too high, like we already said. We're going into late July. I want to do two things this morning. One is I want to give you a lot of facts and data, but two, I want to show you like what that facts and data has led to in the past, so that you can help me decide. After we leave here, you can kind of do your own homework or think about it, about like where we're going. I personally believe that stocks in this year are, depending on if it's a Dow or NASDAQ or S&P, because NASDAQ's up like 23%, that's way too high. It went down 2% yesterday, it's gonna keep going because tech, when people don't have confidence, tech is like nice, right? It's like a luxury. During the pandemic, everyone's buying $150,000 trucks. They're not doing that anymore. There are a lot more on the road, there's a lot more out there right now. I expect that the stock market is going to go down, but it's going to be like a slow drip throughout the rest of the summer, where it's gonna be hard to notice. Now, if you look yesterday, the Nasdaq went down 2%, but no one talks about it because the Dow has been pretty even, and the S&P's pretty even, but it's so high, right? So it's gonna go down a little bit, but it's no different than like maybe a rock in the road or a pebble. It won't be like a massive crash on ways where you're like, okay, I need to just get off the highway. And so buyers won't sell because they're like, I didn't put enough plans this. I just kind of put $500 a month aside, and it's pre-tax dollars. I can't really take it out anyway. So much of the average buyer's dollars in the stock market is either emotional or no one pulls out when it comes to emotion. They just like put in, they feel better because they have it. And then it goes down like, well, now I can't sell. I had an advisor once. I didn't trust him when he said it back in 2007 because he didn't say that the market was going to crash. And I kind of felt that coming. I mean, it was kind of funny because I said I want my money into a pool. And he's like, well, Dave, you're in real estate. Pools aren't a good investment. Now, I wasn't that smart. Like, I didn't realize how popular pools would be. I just wanted a pool. I thought stocks were too high. Now, he was right in the moment that like pools were not that popular in 2007 and 8. But he was wrong when he said just keep dollar cost averaging forever, because in a vacuum, dollar cost averaging, if you know what that means, it's like you buy a stock at $1 and it goes to $2, $3, you're really happy. But then if it comes back down, you're even happier because then you can buy it cheaper, right? If you're like, go down to a penny, I want to buy as much as I can. The average buyer doesn't do that. What happens is when it goes up, they tell their friends, like, oh, you should buy this stock because I bought it 1 and now it's worth 3. And when it goes down, they freak out. And they don't tell their spouse that they lost all their money, but they never sell. They just don't sell. They either can't sell because it's pre-tax dollars. And I'm telling you this, guys, because you can see that the stock market, I can't speak for you, but I can't impact the stock market, guys. I can like, well, David, you're gonna pull your money out? Well, no, I can't, because so much of it's pre-tax. Did I pull money out last year? Absolutely. Did I know it would go up about 8% this year? Sure. But we've got a real estate company. I've got a family. I took in a precious little girl last year. That was more important. It wasn't worth a 7% return when inflation was like 9%. But most people can't impact the market, and they can't pull the money out. And even if they can't pull the money out, they don't want to, because they don't talk about pulling the money out until it hits a height. And when it hits a height, they're like, I can go in more. If anyone's ever, I'm not a fan of gambling, but I used to. If anyone's ever been to Las Vegas, you know, you put $100 down on black and you win. Now you're confident. You put 200 down and you keep going until you lose. But now you're going down and you're like, well, let me pull out my credit card. Like it's just a vicious cycle, right? And you know what happens with the economy, by the way? The economy goes up, and I'm not a fan of roller coasters, but kids have to do it. It goes up, it's a peak. I know, you know, my youngest finally hit 48 inches last year. We went to Disneyland, like Disney World, like a year and a half ago. We waited in line 3 hours a day at the Harry Potter ride. And when he got there, he was just a little short. And it broke my heart for him. And then I was like, okay, if I can make him have the day of his life, then I'll feel better, because one, I love my little guy. And then two, like my wife was like, yeah, like I love rides. That was really scary. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I kind of want him. Obviously, I love him, so I want him to be able to hit it. But then when it's 52 inches, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're only 49. And I'm not smiling, but I'm also like not smiling, because I'm like, I just do not love roller coasters. So I'm like, I gotta find something. Or my wife will just do like 4 rounds on the roller coaster with them. So, but you guys have to know the cycle, guys. You have to know the cycle of the economic cycle, which trickles down on some level to real estate. Now, 2/3 of the time when the recession hits, the housing market actually sees a pop short term. And that is because people have more confidence in real estate. But long term, they get back on track. And so, like, you know, one roller coaster may go like this, and the next one's going like this, but they're all going up, and they don't come down to hit a peak. And once they start coming down, some are like this, which I like, some are like this, like my oldest son likes, and then it doesn't stop until it hits a bottom. And then it comes back. The stock market, the real estate market, gold, silver, inflation, everything hits a peak. And even if it doesn't get to deflation, prices have to come back down. But the new low might be higher than it was before, right? Like the stock market will never get down to 2009. If 2009 it was here, we might get to here. And if this year stock market was here and then it was there, it's just a higher roller coaster, if that makes sense. But everything right now is just so high, guys. And so let's talk about the economy for a moment. We just talked about stock market, talk about the economy. We'll bring it all back into the housing market, which is why we're all here today. The economy is actually not doing that well. So the irony, guys, is just like the smartest people buy when stock market goes down, the smartest people celebrate when inflation goes up. When inflation is high, not so high that the average American can't afford to live and has to go into debt, but above average, above the stock market. If inflation, it really should be like 3.5%. But if the stock market's 5, you kind of want it to be like 6 in hopes that the stock market will go up a little more, but not too long. So you really want like 4 to 5. Let's just call it 5. 3.5 historically has been what it is. But if inflation is high, what does it mean? It means that either supply is low or demand is high, right? That actually means a healthy economy. That's a free market, healthy economy, okay? Inflation has been going down. Now, it's not Republican or Democrat. Right now, in a presidential election year, if this was 4 years ago, or there's a Republican office, they're both going to say, everyone has their own policy, so it's not a partisan thing. But when one person's in office, they're going to tout what's working. The other person's going to tout what's not, right? So right now, they're talking about how many jobs are coming back. Well, no one had a job during the pandemic. You don't know what's accurate. They're talking about how inflation's coming down. Well, it's actually not good for inflation to come down this fast, because it means that like supply's either gone through the roof and you haven't seen prices come down yet, or demand has gone down the drain and you haven't seen prices come down yet. And when I say prices, inflation and prices are inclusive, but they're mutually exclusive. Inflation long-term is amazing for the housing market, right? Like if you owned a home, if your parents owned a home in 1979 and it was 60,000 and today it's worth like 800,000, like long-term, again, guys, If you have deflation, you know when we had the worst deflation? 1929 and 2009. You don't want deflation. You don't want stagnation. You want inflation. You just don't want, you don't want interest rates at 2.5%, and you don't want 10% inflation. Does that make sense, guys? I'm throwing everything at you guys of what's happened in the last 5 years versus what's happened in the last 100 years. We don't want 2.5% rates. Our clients need to hear that. Our spouses need to hear that. Our family and loved ones need to hear we're not going back to that. We're not going back to 10% inflation anytime soon. That's awesome. Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's not. And interest rates not being 2.5% is awesome. If interest rates go back down to 2.5%, like I said, one of two things. I gave you the first option earlier. That there's a catastrophe that's really bad, like a tragedy like 9/11, or something crazy like the pandemic that no one's ever seen. The other is if for whatever reason, people have no confidence in the stock market and everyone's using all their cash for real estate, because it's if mortgage applications just go down so low. And mortgage applications last month were at a 14-year low. We got some people and mortgage experts in the room, and they're feeling that in real time. You know, I felt it on the real estate side, and they go hand in hand. But a 14-year low, guys. Early 2011, it's almost 14 years. Mortgage applications were at almost at a 14-year low because people just can't have, they don't have unlimited money. And so inflation's coming down. That makes it feel a little better when you go to the grocery store and instead of being 400, it's 320, when 3 years ago it was 150. But that's because people can't afford the 400. Does that make sense? Now the rate hasn't come down yet for two reasons. One, they're not sure if inflation is going to stay down, which it will. But two, presidential election years are different, guys. Like again, this is not a partisan thing. They're just different. There's extra caution around, and the last few elections have just been extra emotional. So there's so much more stuff going on. There's extra caution on what the media talks about. And forget, and I'm not attaching the media and politics. I'm saying the media is going to go toward whatever is popular. And so talking about the economy right now, A, is not popular from an election year standpoint, but B, it's not like attractive. Like no one's like sharing that. They're sharing the TikTok things about funny, like the funny family in Raleigh, like got some friends who are close with them, and they're like, oh, they just realized they like doing TikTok videos. They're funny. That's good because not all of it's clean. Like, but theirs are. So it's like the one TikTok video I watch. My wife loves TikTok, and she watches like all the fake stuff, which is good. I'm like, babe, stop sending me this stuff. Like you get like addicted to it all. A lot of it's garbage. You don't know the truth from the garbage. And that's how the media is. Like you don't know. So you guys need to be the experts. You don't need to be sending information that you don't have. You need to use your own wisdom with all this information. And so reeling this in, our rate's going to come down. Because yes, guys, when rates come down, more buyers go up. More buyers go up because demand goes up. Well, what makes rates come down? We talked earlier about supply going up. Well, what happens if supply goes up? Prices go down. Well, what makes rates go down? Prices, guys. Demand. Until prices go down, which is coming to where it's negative, because 3.2% isn't as good as the last 5 years, but 3.2% increase in real estate is actually still on par with the last like 10 years. It's not crazy low. I mean, homes are still selling in a month, just not a day, right? Like there's still mortgage applications, but they're at a 13.5, 14-year low. People are still doing stuff. It's not like the late 70s, but it's getting there. Prices have to fall more. But what makes prices fall? Prices fall when supply goes up. Well, will supply go up? I think it will. So I'm putting out there fact and then some subjective, hopefully not conjecture, but like opinion. My opinion is that supply is going to keep going up the rest of the year in real estate. For many reasons. One, July is historically slow. August, we'll see a little bit of a bump before school, but then it just slows down, right? And then like mid-November, it's done until the end of the year. There's no refinances. People love to like wait to put their house in the market until spring. And by the way, guys, just like I tell my kids, like we use Waze again, like I said earlier, to avoid the traffic, to avoid the accident and mass. If everyone's selling in March, maybe you sell in December because no one else is. You actually have less competition. Again, we talked earlier about how don't look at what's closed, look at what's active. You're only strong as your weakest link. If there's nothing on your street, you have the new market. But here's the thing, like I think there's going to be more signs in the yard the second half of this year. And there's going to be less buyers. Because what have we said? Buyers buy when rates are low, or when there's something like a pandemic. Thankfully, we don't have that. So why would buyers buy right now? Now, supply picking up might get some buyers off the fence, but the irony is, why did the pandemic get so many buyers off the fence? People wanted what they can't have. So you're thinking, well, no, if they go on the market, the buyers can come out of the woodworks. Some buyers, the buyers whose home is on the market. But if no one buys that home, they can't buy their own home. If no one, bless you, if no one buys that home, and they're not moving to the next home, they're gonna say, I guess I'll just renovate my home and stay put. Does that make sense? Again, guys, I'm talking to you as my friends, partners, colleagues. Like, I need you to see it from a non-media perspective as the experts of like what is happening and what is going to happen. So supply picks up. It went from 1 day to 2 weeks to a month. Now you're seeing something like 2 months. We had a seller recently who was like, I don't know what to do. It's been like 24 days. I mean, like this unrealistic expectations of what, what's happening. I mean, people are smiling, but it's true, right? It's like, holy cow, like this home's been on the market, like it didn't sell opening weekend. Because they talked to their friend who sold in 2021 and 2022, who made up a number and there was zero supply. Remember, guys, supply always wins over demand. I mean, I can't think of why demand will win. I mean, you can have like a cool, fancy marketing slogan, like when the Beanie Babies came out, or Tickle Me Elmo, where it's like everyone needs to have it. And some of my friends are buying the Cybertrucks now. Well, that's because there's no supply. Everyone wants what they can't have. A year from now, that 120 becomes 75. You're like, what about inflation? No. First of all, inflation is going to keep going down. And second of all, supply is going to keep going up. See how these are not good things? You're like, well, yeah, that's good for the buyer. Yeah, in the future, it's not good for the person trying to sell their Cybertruck a year from now. It's not good for the person trying to sell their house a year from now. It's not good for the person who needs to trade their gold a year from now, who sells their stocks a year from now. Well, I'm retiring next year. I can't retire this year. I'm only 66 and a half. I need to be 67 and a half. Like, this is pre-tax dollars. What can I do with this money? This is post-tax dollars, but I've been telling my wife for all these years and I'm building this big account. I can't admit to where I lost 3%. I'm just gonna wait. Tomorrow, I'm sure it's gonna go up. It's not. Like, it's just not, guys. Like, the Cybertruck sold at a peak. Stock market has sold at a peak. Real estate has sold at a peak. Gold sold at a peak. Toilet paper, silver, bread, butter, everything is coming down. Long term, that's actually not good. And short term, that's not good. Short term, I mean the next 6 to 12 months. Long term, more than 5 years. In the next 5 years, it will get worse, then it'll get better again. But like, there's like hope that like once rates go down, everything will just get better. How are rates going to come down? It has to get worse before it gets better for rates to come down. The average, it's usually the man, it could be the woman. The average man focuses on the marriage when it's going south. They buy the flowers, they get the counseling, they go to loved ones, like they start praying and asking questions, they start like leaning in. They don't do it when it's good, like everyone finds God when they're in a tough season. Then things get good, they're like, okay, I'm good now, I can do it myself. You ever watch a sporting event? They might thank God for a second when they win the Super Bowl, but then they're going to party all night long. Like, humans don't change, guys. And so all I'm doing is, I remember when I was an economist, I wanted to be a sports agent. And for anyone who read my book or knows my story, I told my mom I was going to come visit her. She's 52. No one dies at 52, right? 3 weeks later, she's gone. She's the only person who ever loved me. And so I moved and started my whole life over. I was redirected for my own protection. I didn't know it then. But I was an economist. And I was doing it because I wanted to be a sports agent. And I actually was becoming a sports agent. I had all these like athlete friends because I was like the expert in the jock tags. By the way, guys, being the expert is not the know-it-all. I didn't know anything, but I knew I didn't know anything. And I was humble enough, so fairly self-righteous and selfish back then, like we're not perfect, but I knew I didn't know what I didn't know. But I wasn't scared to ask the questions and be the one guy fighting for these athletes. When I look back, my oldest son was like, I don't want to go to college, Dad. I just kind of want to work with you at DHR and sell real estate. And that's cool. I mean, if that's what you want, I mean, I'm proud of you. He's very empathetic and he's caring and, saves us a lot of money. And, and he's like, but Dad, like, do you regret going to college? I'm like, no, I mean, I only want to regret not saying goodbye to my mom. I don't regret going to college. I learned a lot. I kind of grew up and I got that job as an economist. And I said to my son recently, I was like, for the longest time, I didn't understand why I had that job. And now I'm in real estate. And I get asked all the time, they're like, what's an economist have to do with real estate? But it has everything to do with it. It has everything to do with it. my wife sometimes says like, she's a stay-at-home mom and like, I can never imagine her job is so much harder than mine, I promise you that. And she's like, I kind of want to go back to work. I'm like, absolutely. She's like, oh, maybe I can work with you. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, honestly, you could probably do this job better than me because you're dealing with kids all day. If you can navigate that and like handle those objections, holy cow. Right, and so many of you guys, I think like so many people have little ones at home. So now I look back and I'm like, okay, I'm so thankful for that job because it taught me about the economy before I knew anything about real estate. It taught me how the stock market and the real estate market are connected. It taught me how the short-term rate is connected to the 10-year treasury yield. Like people don't know. I mean, like the last time, a couple years ago, the rate went to 0 and everyone was like, 0% mortgage rates. No, guys, like, like that's not how it works. There's some relation, but I didn't really know. It taught me that I did a talk a couple years ago with someone who's like a famous real estate guy on TV in Colorado, and he's like from New York, and he's like, oh man, the market's crashing. I'm like, and he's like, David leads with faith, I lead with fear. I'm gonna tell you right now, I lost 3 $8 million deals on the way here. And I'm like, that really stinks. And I'm saying that for 2 reasons. One, I hate that for you in New York, and I hate that for me in Charlotte, because if you're struggling now, we're struggling later. Does that make sense? So you're like, oh, well, glad I'm not in New York. What do you mean you're glad you're not in New York? It's like if again, I said this earlier, I just want to, like, I'm glad I'm not in the stock market. Well, you're all heavily in real estate. So I'm going to keep my big real estate portfolio, and I'm never going to sell my real estate portfolio. Guys, this is for your clients, but this is for your family and you first. You have to put the air mask on yourself first. You have to understand it. You can't just forward stuff. The challenge that we have in this industry, real estate, mortgage, just in service of the whole, is when you go to the doctor doesn't say, they ask you what's wrong, but then they don't follow that with the question of, well, what do you want wrong? Like, well, I got this headache. I want you to tell me I need 3 days rest. I just need to veg out on Netflix and not do anything. I can't like, I'm gonna lock the door and I'm just gonna tell the kids, I can't leave my room for 3 days. I just need to rest for 3 days. The doctor doesn't care what I want. The doctor does not care what I want. The doctor cares what I need. And we need to be the same way. It's not human nature though, it's human nature to people please. That sounds amazing though, right? 3 days locked in your room, 3 hours, right? So I learned as an economist, guys, all the levers that move the economy. And the housing market is one sector of the economy. Yes, it's the largest financial decision that most people will ever make. But no, it's not the only financial decision people will ever make. It's not the largest one that everyone will make. And it's not actually what leads. The housing market doesn't pretty much lead anything. The housing market doesn't lead economic booms and crashes. It actually sends a false sense of security. People actually like have this confidence that doesn't really exist with the housing market. Like they might pull equity out of their house, and maybe it's smart because they use it to buy another home. That's smart. Or they'll pay off like higher debts. They'll take a 7% HELOC, and you're thinking that's a high rate. But guys, you get 7% HELOC, you pay off a 22% credit card. That's amazing. But now what Americans do? That's not what Americans do, guys. We take a HELOC on our house and we finish our kitchen for the 4th time in the last 10 years. We redid it in white and gold like 3 years ago. That's not cool this year. That was like 3 years ago. Now it's cool to be eclectic again, to have different colors. That's what Americans do. Americans do, they go that fancy vacation to Barbados in the 4 seasons, and they spend 20 grand because they got to tell their spouse that they're doing well financially. And then the HELOC payment comes, the bill comes in the mail, and they're like, oh, what's this? I don't know, like, it's just another loan. And then the rate goes up, goes down, it doesn't really matter because they just have this habit, like credit cards max out, move to HELOC. HELOC maxes out, now the housing market's gone down, I need to sell my house, then what? Well, no, David, there's no foreclosures, there's no short sales. Okay, that's fine. The next 5 years will be no short sales and foreclosures. There'll always be equity, prices always go up. But wait, but inflation's coming down. If inflation's coming down, how prices go up? Inflation is literally the definition of price. That's literally what inflation means. Like inflation in a bubble is the price of goods. And when you buy a house and when you build a house, because every home was built at one point or another, you paid for labor, you paid for lumber, you paid for all these commodities, all these services that are attached to inflation. And so, but if rates just come down, everyone's going to buy. Pulling this all in, guys. Supply is not as high as it should be, but it's moving out of that direction. Stock market has never been this high. So remember these things as we keep going. Prices are still positive in real estate, but they're below inflation. So I call them as negative. I think we're ready. And it's at a 6-year low on prices. No one talks about that. No one talks about that because it's not popular to tell your sellers over a 6-year low, unless your sellers are going to sell in the next 3 years, and they realize that if it's going like this, it has to keep going. I mean, it's just normal inertia. You just throw a ball off a hill; it doesn't just stop halfway because like the media told it to. Like it just keeps going, and so supply is not as high as it should be, but it's moving in that direction. Prices are not as low as they should be, but they're moving in that direction, right? So what's going to happen to buyers? Well, buyers are all waiting on the rate, and buyers are waiting for their house to sell. So the good news is, from a housing market standpoint, if you put your house in the market and you time it, and you're not an order taker, or you time it like you would for your own family when there's no competition, you get it ready and staged, and it shows well, and you appeal to the masses of emotion, you make it look its best inside and out, and you realize people do not act on logic, and there's no competition, and you look in the mirror and you're like, okay, yeah, you know, that home that's just on the market for 500. I mean, when sellers say like, oh, that home's on the market for 500, yeah, but I mean, if my home is in a great school district, yeah, your house next door is also in a school district. Yeah, but I mean, like, I can walk to the Starbucks. Yeah, they're one house away from you, and actually Starbucks is in that direction. Yeah, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have like Access Swim and Tennis Racket Club. They also do. We have to remove pride and realize that if we're going to sell in the next 5 years, we have to do it now. We have to. Now, there might be a time in about 3-4 years when we're where we are today and going back up. So if you're going to be there for 7 years, just stay put. Like, don't do anything, like from a selling standpoint. But if you're going to move like the next year or two, your own family, yourself, or your clients, I mean, you have to get out now. But you can't just put it on the market. See, right now, as you guys know, I know, you know, humor me, I know you guys know this. If the home needs any work, no one's touching it. They're just not. Now, that's not good, guys. That's not good. Because in every economy, in every housing market ever, even in 2009, people bought homes. They needed work. That's the only home they bought. They're like, if I'm going to buy right now, it better, you know, I better have some equity. Now, they're like, no, I'll pay a premium. I want it to be flawless. The emotions that have crept in, like, I'm not doing anything right now. I made bad decisions in the pandemic. I'm not doing that again. Interest rates are so high. They're crazy high. They're not that high. I've owned properties over the years. It's 7, 8, 9%. We know people, have clients, friends, loved ones, 15, 20%. Interest rates are not that high, which is why they're not going to fall too much. But we need to get out. Like, if you want a home and you're not going to be there in 5 years, like, you need to get out. But you need to do it right. And if you're an agent, you need to tell your clients, like, yeah, that's great. You know, like, I'm glad like you put a mural on your wall. You're a great artist. So, you know, like, take it off and replicate it on a canvas. Like, I'll see if like we have any friends or loved ones in the local church. We'll put it up. But like, let's get it out of your house. You know, like, let's repaint it. Because, guys, you need to give the truth. And this is, I'm talking to you as if you're talking to your clients. This is also for your own families. You have to show that candor. As long as they know you care. You know, when you have real relationships, this is why transactions don't help. It doesn't help in a weird market like the pandemic because people think they don't need an agent, so they'll just go for the cheapest route. It doesn't happen and work in a weaker market like we're going into, because then they're like, you know what, I'll pay whatever commission, just like get me out, right? And so relationships win the day. When you have the relationship and they know you care, then you can provide the candor. When they know you love, then you can provide the truth. But if you don't have that love, then that truth hurts. Just like if you love someone, but you're trying to please them, you know, the doctor does multiple things. The doctor doesn't just show you empathy, but they tell you the truth. They don't just give you candor, but they show you they care. They don't just say, yeah, you know, you got 3 months to live, like, good seeing you. They have the emotional quotient. They have to be able to manage that. Does that make sense? And we do as well in our families, with our loved ones, with our clients. And so we have to tell the truth. I mean, the truth is right now is a great time to sell your house if you're going to move the next 5 years. But unlike in the pandemic, you've got some stuff going on here. Like, I mean, if I go into my house right now, guys, like, I got 3 kids, 2 cats, a dog, random people coming, going for my kids' friends that come over all the time. And like, I got like stuffed this and holes. I mean, my kids put holes in the wall because it's a Tuesday. And like, I was like, do we even fix these anymore? Or just kind of put more, maybe it'd be cool. Like, white and gold's out, maybe we put like holes in the walls in, I don't know. But like, I mean, I got broken ceiling fans throughout my house, and you know, I got a fundraiser coming up in September. And I told my wife, first I got her permission, she said yes. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm giving you a lot of notice because sometime 2 weeks before, you're gonna realize that we have like broken ceiling fans and like the outside of the house looks great, but the inside of the house, I mean, like, holy cow, my kids come down, I'm like, guys, don't even tell me, just make a list. Like once a week, give me a list of everything you broke. The main reason we haven't moved is not interest rates. It's I don't want the stress, of preparing our house. Like I was like, so I'm not gonna move. And so if your seller's not gonna do that work, you have to be honest with them. And if you have a relationship with them with love, they will trust you and the truth won't hurt. You're gonna say, look, good news, bad news. The good news is we can still get top dollar in July of 2024. But like, yeah, that hole has to go. Like I know that Bobby like was playing hockey there like 10 years ago, and now he's on like the junior checkers, and that's cool and everything. But like the next buyer doesn't have a 14-year-old son who plays hockey in a spare bedroom. So like it's gotta be fixed. The grass has to be short. I know we had hot weeks. My grass is very yellow right now. If I was selling my house, I'd be ripping it all up. It's gonna take time and money because buyers want it flawless. Just like the car. In 2022, again, guys, 2022, like F-150s were 150 grand. I mean, Teslas are 30 grand now, guys. Teslas were like 120 grand. That's like the Cybertruck next year. Like, it's just gonna keep coming down because that's what happens. Like, prices have to come down when the economy sees an increase of supply versus demand. Like, it's happening everywhere. You'll start seeing it. You don't see it in the grocery store as much. That stuff's just so much trickling down to get to like when Harris Teeter or Trader Joe's or Publix. I mean, there's so many chains, and I mean, for it to get from like the country that started with to where it is in Charlotte, North Carolina, or anywhere else in the United States, it takes a long time. And when it comes to small businesses, it's hard to go backwards. You're like, no, like Starbucks is never going to lower prices. I mean, that's where the inflation will be somewhere. Like they're going to be like, no, you're going to buy your Starbucks. You may not pay your mortgage, but you'll pay for your Starbucks. So some things will not go down. Some things that people like don't think they can live without will not go down. People will buy their Jordans, they'll buy their Starbucks, their private school. These are things that they will just do. Their Stanleys, their Yetis, their Louis Vuittons, they will do that. But the second space of that, like the fancy vacations, they're like, you know what? All kidding aside, I've got dear friends buying up Myrtle Beach like it's toilet paper in 2021. You know why? Because everywhere else is so expensive in the Carolinas, and everyone who's moving from New York, New Jersey, and they were buying at the coast there, they're buying at the coast here, and they're all buying in Ocean Island, Oak Island, because everything else in Charleston, everything's too expensive. And there's more supply there. And so there's more supply in these North Carolina beaches and the tip of South Carolina from Myrtle Beach than there is in some other places like Isle of Palms or some more expensive places down in Miami. There's no supply. It's all about supply, guys. Everything is related to supply. If you attach the toilet paper to the $5 million listing, they are mutually inclusive. Like when toilet paper goes down, everyone freaks out and they buy the toilet paper. When all those listings go away, everyone buys it. So right now, make the homes look flawless, guys. Be honest. Like be honest with your clients. On the buy side, buyers should be buying for logic, but logic for their family, not logic of what the media says the rate should be or what the market should be doing. And so with your buyers, you should be talking with them. You should be asking them how their stock account's doing and asking them if there's money in the stock market they can move out and just keep it in cash. You should be asking them why the rate matters so much. Because here's the thing, guys, prices will fall. It's already begun. It's still positive, but again, the housing prices have gone below inflation, so they're negative technically. But guys, it's location, location, location. One community can be really hot, one community is really struggling. But overall, I'm talking a lot on like the mean, not the median, and talking more about the average. But that buyer who's like, well, I can't do anything until I sell my house. Okay, let's get your home ready. Well, I need that money for the new house. What about the equity in your house? Well, I can use that. Okay, do you have any cash fixed up your home? Yes, I've got 20 grand. Great, that's all you need. I got 200,000 equity. Great, let's use that. That's fake until you use it, right? And let's buy the new home. Yeah, but interest rates. Well, hey, here's the thing. Interest rates are not going to go down until prices go down. So unless you can sell your house and you want to rent, and then you wait for rent. Yes, in the perfect world, guys, take your cash, you pull out of the stock market today. You saw the stock market today. Now, no one's going to do that because it went down 1% yesterday. So they have to let it go back to 1%. Now they're back to even, so they really wanted to go up 1%. And it'll just be this vicious cycle like all summer. But really what in the perfect world, you got to lay this foundation for your own loved ones and then for your clients. You sell your house right now. You put the money that you have in cash right now into the house. You sell all your stocks that are post-tax, not pre-tax, because then you pay lots of penalties. of post-tax like investment accounts, you sell it all. You put money into your house to make it look flawless. You have your home ready to go, you time the market when the one active goes pending, and you sell it above market value like pandemic style. Because buyers will still pay a premium for when the home is flawless and they want what they can't have. Remember, the Tickle Me Elmo and the Beanie Babies, I was going down that tangent, you're like, oh, glad Dave went away from that. I'm going back. Those things are worth nothing now. There might be that one rare one that has like a limited edition up to 100, like Princess Diana, but the rest of them, what happened? Supply went up and no one wanted it. You see what's happening here? Now, guys, supply in real estate has to go up. Remember I said like 5-fold. It has to go up every month, September, or August, September, October, November, December, 5 times. It has to double to get back to 2019. We are so low on supply. And so rates are not coming, supply is not coming down anytime soon. So what's gonna happen to the prices? They're gonna come down. And so then the seller who needs to buy is like, well, I'm just gonna wait for rates. Rates is so far down in the future, guys. It's so far down in the future because holding all that constant in the presidential election year, what are we talking about? We're talking about how inflation is coming down. But we can't talk about rates coming. Why doesn't Powell just lower the rate like 5 basis points? Because they know that the rate comes down when the economy is coming down. So remember 2 years ago when inflation was 9%, they said we have to prop up the rate to suppress demand. Does that make sense? They couldn't control supply, so they had to control demand. Now supply, you want the good news or the bad news? The good news is that we still are in a fairly healthy economy. The bad news is it has to get a lot worse before it gets anywhere to where we are today. I mean, we're as close to the peak as we've been. Stock market's not going back up to last week. It might get close, but it's not going to pass it. So the seller who's thinking I'm waiting for rates to come down before I sell, they need to fix their home up and make it look flawless. And when there's no actives, put on the market, sell for above market value, and then take the high rate and just take it. Put as much money down as possible. The rate might be high. Okay, they have higher rates on credit cards, and no problem with it. You use a credit card for a vacation, and they put on Instagram the great trip, and then their $8,000 vacation costs 12 grand, and they don't pay it off. And so, with this interest rate, there's like this pride around the interest rate. You can still sell above market value right now. That's going to stop, guys, because what has to happen next is supply is going to pick up, and then the emotion of, well, I'll pay a premium for this house of Valentine Country Club for 1.5, even though they paid $750 like 3 years ago. That's going to go away because 3 other homes in Valentine on the market in the same community. And they're like, oh, wow, there's nothing on the market for Lake Norman. Now there's 9 homes on the market in Lake Norman. And supply goes up. Those same buyers, they're like waiting for the rate. They're like, okay, well, now supply is really high. I'm not going to pay for a high rate for high supply. See, now they're willing to pay for the high rate if the home's flawless, not if it needs work. Then it's going to be, well, I'm not going to pay for the high with a high rate if supply is higher. So now it has to be flawless and supply has come down. Well, you can't control supply. Supply is not going down. So what happens? Days the market picks up. You fix up your house, still doesn't sell. Days the market picks up. You're like, well, all I can do now is lower the price. Some realtors get a bad rap because all they do is lower prices. A lot of that is the truth around, like in our settlement, that like a lot of realtors just didn't, when they got in as really good people, they didn't realize how much there is in real estate and mortgage. It's important, right? There's so many moving parts. And they get in and the good ones like just bear with it and they just grind it out and they become the expert. It's no different than politics. Some people will get in with the best intentions, and then after a week of talking to 10 people, they gave 11 answers because they like each person, and they tell them what they want to hear. That's why the doctor can't do that. The best doctor can diagnose, but the best doctor also tells the truth, which is what I want to do for you this morning, is just tell you the truth. So as we land this plane, supply has to go really high in houses before rates come down. Because supply has to go really high, where no matter how nice the home is, there's always competition. And as long as there's competition, until there's competition, people won't lower prices. And as long as there's competition, they will lower prices. So then the neighbors that have to sell will lower their prices. Now prices are coming down. That prices coming down will impact the rate. See, right now, commodity prices coming down is going to hopefully impact the short-term rate. Housing prices coming down, mortgage applications at a 13-year, 14-year low has to come down for like another year before the rate comes down because it's not painful enough. And like right now, we can't talk about anything negative during a presidential election year. No decisions can be made right now. So supply has to keep going up. Supply is going to go up. Forget about elections, forget about politics, forget about the economy. Until supply hits where it should be and starts coming back down, prices are not going up. So prices are going to keep going down for probably about another 12 to 18 months. I see rates coming down about 1/8 by the end of the year, maybe 1/4 max. The stock market's going to be bumping the rest of the year as real estate supply goes up. The stock market is going to keep just bumping along because everyone's stock market is just saying, just keep buying. If it goes down, you dollar cost average. If it keeps going up, aren't you happy you didn't sell? And so like no one's going to get out, right? And until, I mean, it's just so true. It's so true. And so until the short-term rate starts coming down and people are freaking out and they sell their stocks, they're not going to do anything. And then at the end of September, the brokers are going to say, you know, okay, now like you want to sell before the holidays, let's get out now. And in October, they're going to sell. It's going to come down. You're not going to hear about it because it's right for the election. And then in November, there's actually going to be the spending season, right? It's in November, December. Now with Amazon, Prime Day, like every day. It's going to look healthy. Stock market's up 9%, 22%, 18% with the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P. It's going to finish between 5 and 10%, like 8% average on each. So it's going to look normal, and no one's going to really notice. But what's happening at the same time as the stock market goes down is the real estate market goes down. Now next year, guys, as I'm starting to land the plan, next year's stock market's going to go down a lot because it has to. Because remember, the stock market went up faster than real estate the last 15 years. The last 30 years, real estate went up more. So now the stock market has to come down faster than real estate. But what happens to real estate? It has to come down next. And the reason for that is supply has to hit a peak before real estate prices can go back up. And it's going to take a while, guys. 5 months before it hits 2019, probably another 7 months before it hits 2020. It's going to take a year before we get to where we should be, a year from now. And in the meantime, the stock market has gone down. It went down 10% from where it is today. It's going to finish around 7 to 8%, right? 9, depending on what stock and how it's being traded. Supply is going to keep increasing on housing. It's going to keep increasing on commodities, which is going to eventually lower the rate. We'll see one rate, mark my words, we'll see one rate cut. I could be wrong. If there's a rate cut every month, the Fed has to explain the rate cut. They have to explain that the economy is being suppressed, that we don't need to keep rates high anymore, demand has gone away, supply is up. That's not attractive, right? Like, again, guys, inflation is not a 4-letter word. Inflation is actually very positive. It just went extreme. 6-7% interest rates are not a bad thing. They're actually really popular. It just got extreme. Like supply is not a bad thing. It's just about to get extreme. Does that make sense? It's been held on the sidelines for so long. And so you're not going to see it, but you'll feel it if you sell your house without doing all the work. You're not going to see it, but you're going to feel it if you try to put your house in the market in the fall when there's 2 other homes that have been sitting and they're closer to a price reduction than you are. And then what will happen sometime in November, December, when all the election's over? Now let's talk about what's going on in the stock market. Well, stock market has been going down for the last 6 months. And right now they talk about it, guys, in the financial articles. They talk about it on the pages where like that exact microcosm buyer end user wants to read it. But in November, December, January, they're going to talk about the overall economy. They haven't talked about a recession in like 10 years, 15 years. They have to talk about it. And so they're going to talk about how the stock market's coming down and the last 3 months is down 10%. But year to date, they're like, oh, it's not bad. Like, I look at my account, it's not doing that bad. Then they'll talk about the housing market. And what happens? What happens when people talk about the stock market going down? Now they're selling, right? When the stock market goes up, they buy. But when the stock market's going down, now they're selling. Now the media is going to talk about it. Now the media in November, December, January is going to talk about the housing market. Now they're not going to talk about the stock market too much at the end of the year because spending will make it feel like it's doing better. They'll talk about the goods because every company's going to put out like these positive reports that are all lagging behind. Next, this coming winter, going into next spring, guys, this past year, the spring started really late because rates got so high, there's so much shell shock and sticker shock. This next spring is going to start early. People are like, I'm out. Like, I need my equity. I'm done waiting on rates to fall. I'm freaking out with all these houses in the market. It's not like Chicken Little. Like, the sky's not falling. It's just we're so far behind as an economy. We're so far behind as a stock market, housing market. It just all got out of control. And what's going to happen is people are going to be like, as soon as the new year hits, I'll put a house on the market. And if I can't get enough money, I'll just rent because rates are too high. And so what will happen is more supply will hit than demand. Supply will also double down by pushing down demand. And then prices will fall. And stock market already had fallen. It'll become more obvious in the spring. And so then what happens next spring and summer? Next spring and summer, you'll see rates falling. You'll see the Fed, the committee will get together at the Federal Reserve, and they will start lowering the rate and lowering the rate. And now build confidence back up. And it's a cycle. And then by late summer, it'll be cool again. People start getting good deals. The lower rates will get the buyers that don't mind doing some work off the sidelines. The sellers will not have to do as much work because prices have already fallen. You have to trade price for convenience, right? Like right now, if you want top dollar, you're gonna be inconvenienced. Next year, you won't have to do the work, you're not gonna get your price. Next year, it's gonna be all about price. This year, it's all about convenience. The seller has to do the work to get top dollar. The buyer will pay top dollar to not do the work. And so sometime around this time next year, you will see a 5. I think we will, like I said, get an 8 to a quarter by the end of the year. But I think next year somewhere it's down, guys. This year it'll finish between 5 and 8% up. Right now it's just too high. So if you have post-tax dollars, sell. If you don't, just hold. I don't buy right now unless it's like pre-tax. But next year, the rates will go down, but they're not going to go down below 5. Like unless it's like some huge attractive like marketing campaign, there's no like 4% rate this time next year. There's no 3% rate this time 10 years. There's no 2% rate in our lifetime again. Like 5 to 5.5%, 5.75% is like the equilibrium rate. 10 years ago, if we were complaining about 5% rate, like what are you talking about? They're 7.5. So guys, like if it's for your own family or if it's for your clients, if you can give them discernment, if they can afford to make their home flawless, and you can time the market when inventory is at a low in that neighborhood on a micro scale, and you can block out all the noise, that everyone's moving to Charlotte and everyone's buying now because rates are up and rates are about to fall. And if you show them the next 12 to 24 months, prices have to go really low, guys. Now, they're never going to get crazy low. They're not going to get down to 2009. It never gets as low as it was. Somewhere in real estate will never get as low, but it will get halfway between where it was and where we are. Right? So if prices have gone up 100%, they'll go down between 30 and 50% in different areas. There's no chance they'll go down 50%. Really? So in 800, the 800,000 tract homes down the block will absolutely be 400,000 or 500,000. When the builder has 4 left and they're just plummeting it, is that like the Emmys where like when you run out of time, like the music starts playing in the background? Like, all right, David, shut up. You have to stop. Is that me? Oh, it is. I thought I put it on vibrate. I give myself my own Emmy. That's me taking the wheels out of my plane. So in closing, guys, the economy is actually, from the outside looking in, the economy is like fairly normal right now, but it has to like correct. We have to get into another recession. We have to have a recession that actually matches the housing market, which only happens to have every 6 times. And we have to have the stock market go down. And so if rates don't fall before the stock market goes down, and if rates don't fall before supply goes up, prices have to fall, right? And so I hope this is helpful. I just want you guys to like just take all of this, 1 with a grain of salt, but 2, like discern it as you will, and just know that it's data and it's knowledge, and you take it, like the doctor takes past history, the doctor takes your records, the doctor takes your symptoms, and then you have to decide. The best doctors pay very close attention, but they also know there's even more variables, right? So when I was an economist, I was making regression models, I was adding so many variables. I've tried to throw a lot of variables at you guys. There might be other variables I'm not even thinking about. There are other variables, like people, Florida may actually go down more than Nevada this time around because Florida went up more, right? Like, and so you're like, well, no, Florida's so popular. Well, yeah, people are moving to Florida, but they can't afford to buy there. No matter how much you want to do something, I love Charlotte, I love Florida, I love lots of places. I was from New York City. I love New York City. I can't afford to live there. So if you can't afford to live in Florida, it doesn't matter how much people love it there, they'll rent. Right? And so they won't buy. So price will keep coming down until supply comes down. And supply won't come down until demand goes up. And demand won't go up until prices come down. And rates won't come down until prices come down. So supply has to go up, guys. Supply will go up, then rates will fall, demand will fall, or excuse me, price will fall, demand will fall, then rates will come down. We have to let everyone we know what's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months. And I don't think 24. In 24 months, prices are a lot lower. In 12 months, you start seeing rates go down. But again, last thing I'll say about the housing piece, guys, and it's on mortgage too. When people are stuck on their rate, if prices are falling and they're still waiting on the rate to come down, remember when we talked about how prices were really high during the pandemic, but rates are so low. We're like, look, you got to pay an extra $100,000 this house, but you get a 2.5% rate. I mean, that's like paying like this much. And we did the analysis of how you can pay $1 million for a house at 2.5. That's still a better deal than 800,000 at 5%. It's in reverse now. As prices fall, give the perspective, the accurate perspective. We don't fake it to make it. This is very important. This is life or death for a lot of people. This is people's lives that they're entrusting us with over thousands, tens of thousands of other realtors, mortgage lenders in our market. The rate is just a catchy phrase. You know, you shouldn't buy a home. You shouldn't do anything in life on rate or taxes. The rate of taxes is what it is. If your family thinks it's the right home for them, you do it. And if you can get the right price, that offsets the rate. And by the way, you get to create memories and build a life. We weren't put on this planet to like just stare at our cell phones all day and look at technology and spreadsheets and money and like the master being the rate. The rate, the money, none of that is what we should be leading with. And so if you can double down and be like, not only is rate not everything, but prices have fallen where the payment's actually lower today than if rates fell. Because again, you can wait for rates to fall, but they're not going to fall that much in 5 years. So what are you waiting on? You're waiting for prices to get so low you can't afford to sell your house because all your kids' tuition and all of your equity is gone now because you're waiting for rates to fall. So we have to like pivot them and give them perspective. I promise I'm done now. Is this helpful?
Very.
Okay, awesome. Good.
Thank you, David.
I want to be respectful of time. I tried to like yell. I thought I had that on. So I'm not a good tech guy. When I heard that noise, I thought it was like, you know, like when someone was like, all right, trying to tell me to shut up. It was myself. Any questions?
I think it's my age bracket. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear somebody say, I would move, except I have a 2 or 3% raise and everything is so expensive. You know, they've been in their house 15, 20 years and, you know.
Yeah, so like I said, just tell them we're going to start watching the market together and just use that neighborhood. This is not going to be popular, but use that neighborhood as what you watch, not the new house. So they're in a house right now that's 800,000. Like, hey, bad news, your house is going to go down in value. Good news, that means the next house will be going down. So when your house at 800, how low does that have to get for you to want to buy the new house? Like, what are you talking about? Well, you said the prices are too high. So if your house is going down, the new house is going to be going down. So if you know where you're going to go, we can look at that community versus yours, but I want to give you perspective. But yes, by you waiting, not only do you have perspective that the new house will go down as yours goes down, you're losing your equity. So it really depends on, oh, I never thought about that. Everyone's just telling me I need to wait for rates to come down and prices are high. Well, you have a house to sell. Is that good news that prices are high? You should really keep them mutually exclusive. Like your decision to sell should be exclusive from your decision to buy. I was talking to a friend yesterday about something, like life decision. I was like, look, if you feel like you need to change careers and you feel called to do that, that is mutually exclusive from where you're going to be when you grow up, right? Like if you're in a toxic relationship, you need to leave that before you have like someone else lined up. Like they are mutually exclusive. So if they can't move, if they don't use all the equity in that house, then they have to sell first and maybe they don't buy yet and they rent. But if you show them that, they're like, wait, I don't want my home to go down 600. I was like, well, you actually do, because that means the prices are down in the new house and you can afford to. Now, if they buy a more expensive home, that's a win. If they buy a less expensive home, it's a loss. But that's the perspective you have to glean on them. Is that like prices are not going to come down until supply goes up. As supply goes up, their competition goes up, and then their value goes down. Just look at the big picture of rates come down last, and before rates come down, prices come down. Before prices come down, supply goes up. So before their new home is affordable, their home has to be less affordable. So it's kind of like having your cake and eat it too. So nothing's perfect, unless you want to sell, hold, and then buy in the future. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? You just don't like the answer, or does
No,
it make
it
sense?
makes sense. I just, you know, the reality is, especially like if you're on a fixed income, like retirees and stuff.
I mean, you could do a reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
The point is you have to fast forward 3 years. I'm a big fan of 3 years. 5 years is too far out there. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get in 5 years. We're gonna go to Europe in five years. No, you don't do anything in 5 years. And then 1 year, and then you're like, well, it was only 1 year. It's like the fad diet. Like they only attract you at 3 o'clock in the morning because your body don't sleep because anxiety and everything. And I've been there, and kids don't always sleep. But it's like the fad. It's in now. 1 year is too short. So you have to fast forward with them and ask them, like, okay, you're on a fixed income. In 3 years, you're in this home. No, I'm not in this home in 3 years. Okay. We're gonna go in this 55 and older community. It's a lower price point. They do the maintenance. Absolutely, that's great. But Cindy, like, it's just so high right now. All right, well, that home is 500, yours is 800. When that one goes down 15%, you save 75. Then you lost 120. So, you know, you have three options. Option A, do nothing. Option B, sell your home and rent. Sell now at the peak, rent, wait for price to fall, and maybe rates too. Or option C, just do both at the same time. And you got the win when you sold, and you got the win when you bought. It just wasn't on the lowest price. It's like stock. You can't buy and sell a stock at the same, you know, at the same time. So that's why I say give perspective, because people, if you guys retain 20% of today, that's awesome. I just want you to get one nugget. I just want you to be encouraged to have the information, to take and run with it. That you guys are smarter than you probably think, and you have a lot of information you can discern and help a lot of people. But some people need to see. So if you show them the community they're looking to go to, but if they don't know yet, you show them their community. Be like, look, unfortunately, by me doing this, you're going to see your home go down. You're going to see competition hit the market, price reductions, and they're going to go in the wrong direction. Well, why are you doing that then? Well, you're waiting for prices to come down. When your price goes down, your next house will go down. Well, I need this home to buy that one. Okay, will it do both at the same time or sell now and wait? You got to go that deeper.
Yeah.
It's no different than, last thing I'll say about this, like I'm 44, I have genetic high cholesterol, it's gotten better, I try to eat right, try to exercise, and not as often as I put on the calendar. You feel good about putting something on the calendar, you just don't follow through. You're like, oh, I did a to-do list, I'd actually do, sorry. I'll try to be respectful of your time. My doctor, when I was 36, I said I have high cholesterol with my new doctor. I just moved to a new doctor. And she's like, oh, no, you're only 36, you're inside your body mass index, you're good. I was like, that's not really what I said. I said, I have high cholesterol. She's like, no, you're good. We'll check you. We start checking at like 40. I'm like, but I have genetic high cholesterol. She's like, I mean, if you really want the blood work, like, David, I'm sure you're good. Mr. Hoffman, so I just got your blood work back. You have high cholesterol? I'm like, of course I do. So, but the doctor is like, but the textbook says I start testing at 40 when you're outside of the body mass. Your client doesn't know everything. You're the expert. You have to ask more questions. You know, what happens when prices go down? What happens to their house? Where's the money coming from for the new house? How are they affording the new house if their house is worth less in 2 years? When people think through all the scenarios and all the variables, so that's why I threw a lot of variables at you guys, it's kind of overwhelming. I mean, I've read things that say that, like, when stock market crashes, everyone buys real estate. I mean, I've never seen evidence of that, because when stock market crashes, no one has money, and they have no confidence. But I'm sure that was a popular article. You can find those articles because it's popular. I mean, you know, I've got a friend who jokes, you know, he's like late a lot and he jokes and he's like, you know, I'm going to write a book that says it's okay to be late. I'm like, dude, people like my book because it's my story for God's glory. It's like he'll get it wherever he wants to. But like that book, that book will like be a New York Times bestseller because everyone's like, wait, it's okay to be late? That doesn't mean that's right, but it's so popular, right? It's so. You got to just dig deeper with your. I'm begging you can like do it forward. No, I'll get aside. So that is a question. We all hear that. Oh, I'd love to buy, but prices are so high, but they're not as high. So I'm going with this. Your client has already lost money. Your friend has already lost money from 2022. Prices are coming down, but they feel like they're high. You know what? You want to show them a new home that's not high? Show them a new home that is not new. Show them that new home they're going to buy that needs work. And you can find homes that are lower, much lower. And you can offer whatever you want. 2 homes in my neighborhood in the last 2 months. 1 home sold above market value, flawless. The next home, so no competition, so at least they timed it right. Bigger, sold for $500,000 less. Needed work. Buyers will pay a premium because rates are so high. So your client is looking at like, yeah, I'm looking at this perfect house that everyone wants and it's amazing and you don't need to do anything to it. They put so much money into it and it's crazy how high it is. Well, then sell your house perfect and put the money in the bank and wait, or maybe find a home that needs work and finish it your way. And by the way, you probably don't like those cabinets. You probably want different color countertops and it's probably not perfect. It just looks nice. And like your right side of your brain is tricking the left side of your brain thinking it's perfect. Anyone?
It's a pay less versus more.
Yeah, you're either going to pay less or make more. Anyone else?
I just dealt with this exact scenario. Had a 80-year-old client, been in her house since '95, and was paying next to well, I shouldn't say next to none, interest rate was fairly low. But we sold their house before it even went active. And then she fought and fought and fought. I want an old house so I can afford it and not have to get a mortgage. But turns out she got a new house with a mortgage and was still paying over $1,000 less a month for her new mortgage than she was on her old house because she had so much equity in the old house. And they were tickled pink with the whole thing, but it was a scary ride up until it was over.
Yeah, I use the doctor analogy, Stuart, because like as realtors, lenders, we love to ask, like, so what do you want for your house? You know, so what do you want to see? And what would it look like to get you in this car today? Like, why does it matter what they want for their house? Like, I've had people say, hey, your gang never asks us what we want for your house. They're like, it doesn't matter to us. Like, you know, the doctor doesn't say, like, what do you want wrong with you? Like I said, I want you to tell me that my wife and I need to take a vacation and you know the best babysitter and like it has to be, you know, I want you to say I need to watch like whatever I want for 3 days and just have peace and just get a good night's. No, the doctor doesn't care what I want as a patient. Doctor's like, I'm gonna tell you what you need, and we have to do that. You know, we're not being a friend if we're not being the expert. You know, it's actually, again, with love you can tell the truth. So like for you, that's a perfect example, Cindy, for your friend. Your friend trusts you. You have to ask the questions, and that's their idea. When they hear themselves say it, they retain more than 20%. And they will come with their same conclusion that you probably have. That's self-discovery. Just get off the internet, get off the media, and like come with your own. You've got enough wisdom, guys, that you can pay forward, and you probably know best. It's like if you're a parent, like you know better than everyone else. You do. Like everyone else thinks they know better than you, but they don't know your kids. They don't know the lifestyle. They don't know the dynamic. You know best if you're a mom or a dad. Was this helpful, guys?
Yes.
I'm respectful of time. They said 10 to 12. I want to leave a little time for questions. Anyone else? No one has questions? So that either means like you're so ready to run out, or like you just learned so much, you try to digest it all.
Amazing job.
I just assume it's a lot. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys. Marissa did an awesome job. We have like pastries and coffee, and the pastries are all sugar-free, trans fat-free, carb-free, and mingled. So, and I'd love to say hi to anyone that I haven't seen. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you, David.